At 4:18 in the morning, less than 17 hours after I watched my husband's coffin disappear into the ground, my key stopped working in my own front door. I tried it once, then twice. On the third attempt, the brass teeth scraped against a lock that had not been there the day before. The porch light came on. My mother appeared behind the glass wearing my gray cashmere robe. The robe Daniel had given me on our 10th anniversary. For one stunned second I thought grief had confused me. Then my father stepped beside her. He did not open the door. He spoke through it. "This house is ours now, Claire." 3 cardboard boxes sat beneath the porch window. My clothes. My medication. The framed photograph from Daniel's hospital room. Someone had placed his worn leather slippers on top as though they were garbage. I stared at my parents through the glass. "What are you doing inside my house?" My mother folded her arms. "Daniel transferred the property before he died." "No, he didn't. He understood that you were not capable of maintaining it alone." I pressed my palm against the cold door. "I buried my husband yesterday. And we gave you the entire day to grieve," she replied. As if grief had office hours. My father looked toward the quiet street. "Do not create a scene." It was February. The wind moved through my black funeral dress and pressed the fabric against my legs. I had not changed since the burial. I had spent the night at Daniel's sister Ruth's house because she was afraid I would wake alone and forget he was gone. At 3:30 I slipped out while she slept. I wanted to sit in Daniel's study. I wanted to smell the cedar soap he used. I wanted to place my hand over the warm indentation that should still have existed on his side of our bed. Instead, my mother was wearing my robe. My father had changed my locks. And my brother Nathan was visible behind them, carrying Daniel's laptop toward the stairs. "Nathan," I shouted. He stopped. My mother turned and spoke to him without looking away from me. "Take it to the car." My heartbeat changed. This was not only about the house. They were searching for something. I looked at my father. "Open the door. We will contact you through the attorney." "What attorney?" "The foundation's attorney." The Avery Hope Foundation belonged to my parents. For 27 years, Margaret and Paul Avery had built a public reputation around helping grieving families. They funded emergency hotel rooms for widows. They held charity lunches for children who had lost parents. My mother appeared in local magazines wearing cream suits and talking about compassion. My father stood beside her in photographs with one hand over his heart. But at 4:18 in the morning, they had locked their newly widowed daughter outside. I reached for my phone. My mother's expression changed. "Do not call the police. Then open the door. You will embarrass yourself." "Not as much as you think." I dialed anyway. Before I could press the final number, my phone vibrated. A scheduled message appeared on the screen. Came from Daniel. For one impossible second the world disappeared. Then I remembered. Daniel had created several scheduled messages during his final month in hospice. Birthday notes. Instructions about the furnace. A reminder that the maple tree needed trimming in spring. This message contained an audio file and a single sentence. "If your key does not turn, do not argue. Call Naomi Reed." My legs weakened. My father watched my face. "What is it?" I closed the message. "Nothing." My mother stepped closer to the glass. "You should go." I picked up the 3 boxes. Daniel's slippers fell onto the porch. I left them there. Then I turned and walked toward my car. Behind me the deadbolt slid into place. "My name is Claire Holloway. I was 42 years old when my parents took my house before the earth had settled over my husband's grave." Daniel had been 46. He spent his career as a forensic accountant. He could look at 6 years of ordinary invoices and find the single payment someone hoped would never be noticed. He carried a black mechanical pencil behind his right ear when he worked. Even during chemotherapy. Even when his hands began to tremble. 8 months before he died, doctors found cancer in his pancreas. By the time they found it, the disease had already reached his liver. Daniel did not waste much time asking why. He made lists. Medical insurance. Passwords. The water bill. The exact brand of coffee Ruth preferred. Then, during his final weeks, he began asking unusual questions about the Avery Hope Foundation. "How much authority does your mother still have over the family trust? Why is your childhood address connected to one of the foundation's loans? Did you ever authorize Nathan to use your social security number? At first, I thought medication had made him suspicious. My parents had never accepted Daniel completely. They believed their daughter, a preservation architect, should have married someone with a more impressive family name. But they tolerated him once his career became successful. They invited him to audit the foundation's annual reports. They introduced him to donors as their brilliant son-in-law. Daniel rarely complained. He simply stopped trusting them long before I did. I called Naomi from a gas station parking lot. She answered before the second ring. "Claire. My parents changed the locks." There was a pause. Then she said, "Daniel was right." That frightened me more than the locked door. Naomi Reed had been Daniel's closest friend since graduate school. She was also the attorney who prepared our estate documents. "Right about what? Where are you?" "Near Hamilton Avenue. Go to Ruth's house. Do not return home. Do not confront your parents and do not tell them you spoke to me. They have Daniel's laptop." "No, they don't. I saw Nathan carrying it." For 3 days I stayed in Ruth's guest room while my parents occupied my home. I knew which room they searched first. The smart home logs recorded every open door and every disrupted sensor. Daniel had installed the system after his diagnosis. He told me it was because he worried about leaving me alone in an old house. I did not know he had also created a record no one inside could erase. At 5:11 on the morning they changed the locks. Nathan entered Daniel's study. At 5:19 he opened the desk safe. At 5:42, my mother carried 3 binders into the dining room. At 6:08 my father climbed the attic stairs. At 7:34 they removed the blue firebox. At 8:05, Nathan drove it to the foundation office. They were careful about everything except the evidence proving they were there. My mother called 12 times. Her messages changed tone each time. First she was concerned, then patient, then angry. By the final message she sounded almost tender. "Claire, sweetheart, Daniel left financial problems you clearly didn't understand. Come sign the papers and we will handle everything." The papers arrived by courier that afternoon. One document stated that I had voluntarily donated the house. Another appointed my father as temporary manager of my trust. A third acknowledged that I had approved several foundation transfers while experiencing emotional instability. Naomi placed the pages side by side. "They want you to confess. They want me to say Daniel caused it. They want you to say you and Daniel caused it." I stared at my forged signature. My parents had not simply rejected me. They had prepared a story in which I deserved what happened. Ruth placed a bowl of soup beside me. "You haven't eaten." "I'm not hungry." Daniel was never hungry during treatment either. I made him eat. "I'm not Daniel." "No." She sat across from me. "You're the person he trusted to finish this." I took one spoonful. Then another. That evening, Naomi introduced me to Helen Grant, the 61-year-old treasurer of Avery Hope Foundation. Helen had served on the board for 18 years. She wore silver-framed glasses and carried a red leather notebook. "Daniel contacted me in October," she said. "Why didn't you contact me?" "He asked me not to until he verified the transfers." "Did you know my parents were involved?" "I suspected Nathan. I did not suspect your mother." The pain in her voice told me she and my mother had once been close. Helen opened her notebook. "The foundation has 43 active emergency housing cases. If the bank freezes our operating account, those families could lose support. So exposing my parents hurts the people they claim to help." It could. That was what Daniel had meant by deciding what mercy looked like later. Justice was not as simple as destroying the guilty. Sometimes innocent people stood beneath the same roof. "What can we protect?" I asked. Helen looked toward Naomi. Naomi answered. "The regulator can place the foundation under temporary independent management. Donor funds can remain available if the board votes before the bank acts." "Will the board vote?" "If they see the evidence." The memorial luncheon was 2 days away. My mother would be standing before nearly 300 donors. Nathan planned to announce Avery Gardens as a new housing initiative. They would use photographs of widows and children to promote a luxury wedding venue funded with stolen money. I felt something inside me become still. "Show them everything." Naomi studied me. "Publicly." "No speech from me." "What do you want?" I want the board to stop the announcement before they use one more grieving family as decoration. The plan was simple. The board would meet privately 1 hour before the luncheon. Helen would present Daniel's audit. Naomi would present the property and trust records. A representative from the state charity regulator would attend by video. If the board voted for independent management, my parents and Nathan would lose access immediately. The luncheon would still proceed, but not under their control. The night before the event, my father appeared at Ruth's door. He looked smaller than he had through the glass. He held Daniel's slippers in a paper bag. Ruth did not invite him inside. I stepped onto the porch. "Why are you here?" He looked at the bag. "These were left outside. You placed them there." "Your mother did. You watched." He closed his eyes briefly. That had always been my father's defense. He was present but not responsible. Silent but not cruel. Following but not choosing. "Claire, come home and speak with us. You changed the locks. The house became part of a legal problem. It became part of your theft." His face changed. "Daniel filled your head with accusations. Daniel gave the regulator bank records." My father looked toward the street. For the first time, fear appeared. "You don't understand what will happen if this becomes public. I understand 43 families could lose housing because you covered Nathan's debts. I was trying to protect the foundation. You falsified the reports. Your mother made the transfers before I knew their size. And after you knew?" He said nothing. "You signed the reports. I believed Nathan could repay the money once Avery Gardens opened. It is a wedding venue. It was supposed to generate income for the foundation. Did the board approve it? No. Did the donors? No. Did I approve using my house?" His voice weakened. "No." There was not an apology. But the truth had finally entered the porch light. "Then why did you lock me out?" "Your mother said the audit files had to be secured. From me. She believed grief would make you unpredictable. You watched her put my belongings in boxes." His jaw tightened. "I came here to prevent tomorrow. Tomorrow is already happening." He looked at me. "Your mother will not survive public humiliation." I thought of the widows whose photographs she placed in brochures. Women who thanked her while she stole from their funds. She survived locking me outside after I buried my husband. That was different. It was dawn. My father lowered his head. I paused before I turned the lock. I felt no comfort. "Then you had time to choose." He left the slippers on the porch and walked away. I did not bring them inside. The following morning I dressed in the dark navy suit Daniel liked. He once told me the color made me look impossible to intimidate. Around my neck I wore his brass key on the green thread. Ruth drove. Naomi sat beside me with the navy document case. The Avery Hope Foundation luncheon was held inside the ballroom of the Grand Mercer Hotel. White roses decorated every table. Large screens showed photographs of families the foundation had assisted. My mother's name appeared across the program. Margaret Avery, founder, president, advocate for widowed families. Nathan stood near the stage greeting donors. When he saw me, his smile disappeared. "You were told not to come. I received an invitation. This is a private event. Then stop using my husband's photograph in your presentation." He glanced toward the screen. A photograph from Daniel's obituary appeared beside the words. "Remembering those we lost." My mother approached in a white suit. For a second she looked like the woman from magazine covers. Then she saw Daniel's key around my neck. "You should not be wearing that. It belongs to me. So does this family, whether you appreciate it or not." "No." Her expression hardened. "You think a few accounting papers can destroy 27 years of work? I think 27 years of work should survive without you stealing from it." A donor nearby turned slightly. My mother lowered her voice. "Go home. You changed the locks. To protect the property. From its owner?" My father appeared behind her. He looked at me but said nothing. "The same choice." Helen entered the ballroom. She walked directly toward us. "The board is ready." My mother frowned. "For what?" "The emergency meeting." "There is no emergency meeting." Helen held up her red notebook. "There is now." 1 hour before the luncheon began, 9 board members entered a private conference room. My parents. Nathan. Helen. Naomi. 2 independent directors. The foundation's attorney. And me. The regulator appeared on the screen. Naomi placed Daniel's audit in the center of the table. My mother did not open it. This document was prepared by a dying man under significant medication. Naomi replied. The supporting bank records were prepared by the bank. Nathan leaned back. This is a family dispute. Helen spoke quietly. No. It is a charity fraud investigation. My father looked toward the door. My mother placed both palms on the table. Paul, say something. He stared at the audit. Then he whispered. The transfers occurred. Nathan turned toward him. Dad. My mother's voice became sharp. You are confused. No. He looked at me. I signed reports after I knew the money had been moved. The room changed. My father had spent his entire life allowing my mother to speak first and loudest. That morning his confession removed the last place she could hide. Nathan stood. The venue would have repaid everything. Helen opened her notebook. You used donor money for imported stone, a private apartment and a tasting kitchen. Those were project expenses. The apartment is registered to you. It is on the property. Naomi displayed the forged deed to my house. The foundation's attorney removed his glasses. Margaret, did you authorize this filing? My mother did not answer. The regulator asked. Is Mrs. Holloway present? I am. Did you donate the property? No. Did you sign the transfer document? No. Did you permit foundation officers to enter or occupy the property? No. My mother turned toward me. We raised you in that house. You lived there for 2 years. It belongs to the Avery family. My grandmother disagreed. Naomi displayed the trust deed. My mother's face lost color. She had believed the original ownership papers were inside the blue firebox. The box they removed from my attic. The box now sitting in Nathan's office. Naomi placed a photograph on the table. It showed the firebox inside the foundation building. A time stamp appeared beneath it. The property tracker confirms that foundation officers removed materials from Mrs. Holloway's home after changing the locks. Nathan looked at my mother. You said there were no cameras. There weren't supposed to be. The room became silent. The attorney wrote something on a legal pad. Helen proposed 3 resolutions. Immediate suspension of Margaret, Paul and Nathan Avery. Independent control of all bank accounts. Full cooperation with the state investigation and restoration of funds through asset recovery. The vote passed 7-2. My mother and Nathan voted against it. My father did not vote. At 11:45, their electronic access to the foundation ended. At 11:47, the bank froze Nathan's consulting accounts. At 11:52, the county recorder rejected the forged transfer of my house. At noon, the ballroom doors opened. Nearly 300 donors sat beneath white chandeliers waiting for my mother to speak. She stood in the corridor holding the program with her name across the front. What happens now? She asked. Helen answered. The luncheon continues. Pie speech. Cancelled. Pie recognition. Cancelled. My mother looked at me. You plan to humiliate me. No. You came here in front of everyone. I came to stop you from announcing Avery Gardens as housing for widows. You have destroyed your brother's future. Nathan spent money that belonged to homeless families. You always hated that we believed in him. I almost responded. Then Daniel's voice returned to me. Protect the truth first. Decide what mercy looks like later. I don't hate Nathan, I said. I'm finished paying for him. Helen walked onto the ballroom stage. The conversation gradually stopped. My mother remained in the corridor. Nathan disappeared through a service exit. My father sat alone in the final row. Helen approached the microphone. Today's program has changed. A quiet movement passed through the room. The Avery Hope Foundation has entered independent management while financial concerns are reviewed. Emergency support for all current families will continue without interruption. My mother closed her eyes. Helen continued. We will not be presenting the Avery Gardens expansion. We will instead direct today's contributions toward housing commitments already made. No accusations. No dramatic names. No public speech from me. Just the truth stated clearly enough that the people who needed to understand would understand. Then Helen looked toward the photograph of Daniel on the screen. This review became possible because one person believed protecting grieving families mattered more than protecting reputations. My throat closed. She did not say his name. He did not need to. The luncheon continued. My mother left before lunch was served. No one followed her. My father remained seated until the ballroom was almost empty. Then he placed the old house key my parents had replaced beside my plate. "I am sorry," he said. I looked at the key. "Which part?" "All of it." It was the right answer. It was not yet enough. I returned home that evening with Naomi, Ruth, and a locksmith. The front door opened at 6:03. The house smelled wrong. My mother's perfume mixed with dust from Daniel's study. Drawers hung open. Books had been removed from shelves. The mattress had been lifted. A section of the attic wall was damaged where Nathan searched for documents. But the walls were still ours. The staircase Daniel repaired still creaked beneath the fourth step. His blue coffee mug remained beside the kitchen sink. And the small pencil mark he made near the pantry door during our first week of renovation was still visible. Home begins here. I had walked past those words for 16 years. That night I touched them with one finger. Ruth began cleaning. Naomi called the insurance company. I carried Daniel's slippers upstairs and placed them beside the bed. Then I sat on the floor and cried until there was nothing graceful left in me. The investigation lasted 14 months. The truth did not move as quickly as the luncheon. Bank records had to be traced. Properties had to be valued. Donors had to be notified. My parents' finances were examined separately from the foundation. Nathan claimed every transfer had been approved verbally. My mother claimed she believed the house belonged to the family. My father admitted falsifying reports and cooperated. Because he cooperated, the state accepted a civil and criminal resolution that prioritized restitution. Avery Gardens was sold before completion. Nathan's private apartment, vehicles, and investment accounts were liquidated. My parents sold their lake condominium. The recovered money restored nearly all the foundation's missing funds. The foundation kept its doors open. But the Avery name was removed. Helen renamed it Harbor Light Family Support after a board vote. No founder's portrait hung in the lobby. My mother received probation, community service requirements, and a permanent ban from managing charitable funds. My father received a reduced sentence and financial monitoring conditions because he documented the remaining accounts. Nathan was convicted of fraud connected to the shell companies. He served 11 months. I did not celebrate. Consequences are not always joyful. Sometimes they are simply necessary. My father wrote every month. The first letter explained. I returned it unopened. The second apologized. I read it once. The third did not ask for forgiveness. It described the moment he changed my lock. He wrote, "I told myself I was preventing chaos. The truth is that I was afraid of your mother's anger and chose to make you carry it instead." That letter I kept. Not because it repaired anything. Because it was the first time my father described his silence as a decision. My mother never apologized. She sent one message 6 months after the luncheon. A daughter should not punish her family forever. I did not answer. Boundaries often feel like punishment to people who benefited from your lack of them. Nathan contacted me after his release. He wanted to explain that Avery Gardens would have succeeded. I told him success built with stolen money was still theft. Then I ended the call. The house required months of repair. Nathan had damaged the attic wall. My parents had cracked the lock on Daniel's study cabinet. The carpets needed cleaning. But restoration was what I did. I had spent my career saving old buildings from the moment after someone decided they were ruined. I knew that damage had to be measured honestly before it could be repaired. Ruth helped me remove the ruined attic plaster. Naomi brought lunch every Saturday. Helen found a local carpenter willing to donate time. A widow named Tessa Morgan, whose rent had once been paid by the foundation, came to help paint the guest room. "I heard what your husband did," she said. "He protected the foundation. He protected people he never met." Tessa had 2 children and worked nights at a hospital. Her husband had died in a construction accident. She understood the strange cruelty of receiving paperwork while still expecting someone's footsteps in the hallway. One afternoon we sat on the guest room floor eating sandwiches from paper wrappers. Tessa looked around. "This room feels safe." The word stayed with me. Daniel and I never had children. We once planned to turn the guest wing into a studio. After his diagnosis, we stopped making long plans. But the house had 6 bedrooms. Most remained empty. The foundation had emergency apartments, but they were often full. So I created something new. Not a charity with my name above the door. Not a monument to Daniel. A simple transitional program for newly widowed women who needed somewhere safe for a few weeks while accounts, insurance and housing were sorted. Harbor Light handled applications. Naomi created the legal structure. Helen arranged independent oversight. I donated the guest wing, not the house. The deed remained in my trust. No one would ever use generosity to erase my ownership again. We called the program Dawn Rooms. Because dawn had been the hour my parents locked me out. I wanted it to become the hour someone else was allowed inside. The first woman arrived 18 months after Daniel's funeral. Her name was Marisol. She was 39 and had lost her wife unexpectedly. She carried one suitcase, a folder of hospital papers and a small ceramic bird wrapped in a towel. I stood at the front door holding Daniel's brass key. For a moment I remembered my mother behind the glass. My father's hand on the lock. The boxes beneath the window. Then I opened the door. You can stay for 6 weeks, I told Marisol. Longer if the housing coordinator approves it. She looked past me into the hallway. Are you sure? Yes. Why are you doing this? I glanced at the pencil mark beside the pantry. Home begins here. Because someone should have opened a door for me. That night I sat in Daniel's study. His mechanical pencil rested inside a shallow wooden box. Beside it lay the brass key, Naomi's first court order and my father's letter. I played Daniel's final audio message one last time. Protect the truth first. Decide what mercy looks like later. For months I had wondered whether I had been merciful. My parents lost positions, money and reputation. Nathan lost his freedom. But the foundation survived. The families kept their housing. My parents were not destroyed. They were simply no longer protected from the consequences of their decisions. Mercy had not meant hiding the truth. It meant refusing to become cruel while revealing it. 2 years after the funeral, Harbor Light held its annual luncheon in the same ballroom. Helen asked me to speak. I almost declined. Then I thought of Daniel's photograph on the screen and the way my mother had once planned to use his death as decoration. I agreed on one condition. No award. No portrait. No speech about resilience that turned my grief into entertainment. I stood before the donors wearing the same navy suit I wore the day the board removed my parents. Daniel's brass key rested against my chest. I used to believe a house was safe because your family lived inside it, I said. The room became quiet. Then I learned that safety is not created by blood, ownership or a locked door. It is created by the person who sees someone standing outside and chooses to open it. I told them about Dawn Rooms. I did not tell them every detail of the betrayal. The records already held that truth. I spoke about widows whose bank accounts froze before funeral flowers died. People who needed a bed more than advice. Children who needed breakfast while adults argued about probate. When I finished, the audience stood. I did not look for my parents. They were not there. After the luncheon, my father waited in the lobby. It was the first time I had seen him in almost a year. He looked older. May I ask one question? He said. You may ask. Will you ever let me into the house again? I looked at him. The easy answer was never. The honest answer was more complicated. I don't know. He nodded. That is fair. He started to leave. Dad. He turned. I received your letters. His eyes filled. I know. I'm not ready. I know that too. He left without asking me to make him feel better. That was the first change I believed. My mother remained silent. Perhaps she still believed I would eventually return and apologize for exposing what she had done. Perhaps she told herself I had chosen Daniel over family. In one way she was right. Daniel had been my family. So were Ruth, Naomi, Helen and the people who helped repair the attic. Family was no longer a word someone could use to force me back toward a locked door. It was a description earned through action. I buried my husband at noon. By dawn my parents said the house was theirs. They believed grief would make me surrender. They believed Daniel's death had removed the only person capable of uncovering the truth. But Daniel had already done what he did best. He left a clean record. A trail of documents. A decoy box. A scheduled message. And one brass key that reminded me ownership was not only about a name on a deed. It was about deciding who had permission to enter your life. My parents took control of my house for 3 days. Karma did not arrive as a storm. It arrived as bank statements, security logs, board votes and signatures they could no longer deny. And when the truth finally woke up, it did not lock them outside. It simply stopped holding the door open for their lies. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. What would you have done if your parents changed the locks the morning after your husband's funeral? Would you have confronted them immediately, or stayed calm long enough to uncover why they wanted the house? Subscribe to Her Final Move for more fictional stories about betrayal, hidden evidence, intelligent revenge and women who reclaim their lives.